welcome to In Parliament. Today, the debate started with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Minister K Shanmugam said Singapore has worked hard to ensure that it's well positioned to meet the challenges of an uncertain geopolitical situation and global economic uncertainties. He said the ministry has worked to strengthen ASEAN and has built up bilateral accounts with regional neighbours as well as major powers.
But we cannot be complacent. We will continue to stay alert and nimble and to respond to challenges and opportunities. People are the key to diplomacy, no substitute for people, and MFA is fortunate to have quality staff. The Foreign Service must remain competitive, both with other services in public sector and the private sector. And that's necessary for maintaining the high standards in safeguarding and advancing Singapore's interests.
And that includes looking after the Singaporean people even when they are abroad. Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Sam Tan, said it will continue to do all it can to assist Singaporeans in distress. But while most consular requests are reasonable, Mr. Tan said Singapore also receives its fair share of unreasonable and weird requests.
We have a request for assistance to seek a refund from a Singaporean after he had procured illegal sexual services. So he wanted a refund. So another case is a Singaporean living in Indonesia, and he requested MFA to ship to him a desktop computer that he had ordered online from the US. And another Singaporean had also sought MFA's assistance to persuade his foreign girlfriend to expedite her divorce proceedings with her husband so that he could marry her.
Speaking next in his capacity as the Law Minister, Mr. Shanmugam said the ministry is making significant legal reforms to further safeguard the rights of Singaporeans. The Law Ministry will work with the Ministries of National Development, Home Affairs and Culture, Community and Youth to see if a framework can be developed to resolve community disputes. MP for Nee Soon GRC Patrick Tay noted that with an increased population, rising number of household units and close proximity of neighbours could give rise to an increase in neighbour disputes. While MP for Pasir Ris Punggol GRC Janil Putucherry asked if the process of community mediation could be given more bite.
If the first round of mediation doesn't result in an amicable situation, that an appointed body or group issues a notice to the party or parties involved, requiring them to comply with an appropriate or described set of behaviours, and where the offence then is a failure to comply with the notice. And so rather than letting cases drag on until one party reports the matter to an authority and the other party gets fined and the relationship becomes more strained and very adversarial, I'm suggesting that rather than using this opportunity of developing a framework to draw up a list of offences, which may be a very difficult list to agree upon, it is the process which is prescribed and it is the failure to engage with the process that is the offence.
Community disputes, as members recognize, fall into many categories, ranging from noise disturbances, unpleasant smells. Some are bona fide, some may suggest extreme sensitivity. And it is an area that is inherently difficult to resolve because emotions tend to run high and the views are very subjective on what is acceptable behavior. The existing framework of criminal and civil laws, I think, may need to be relooked at.
Mr. Shanmugam also announced that there will be updates to the means test system for legal aid. This is to expand the coverage so more people in the lower income group can have access to legal aid.
We updated the means test to keep pace with the cost of living and try and protect vulnerable persons in family disputes. With the amendments, an additional 300,000 citizens can meet the income test. That's about 25% of our residents, which is up from the current 17%.
The Ministry of Law will also be charting a master plan to develop Singapore's intellectual property or IP sector through a steering committee. The committee has submitted its proposals to the government, identifying 3 strategic outcomes to work on. Senior Minister of State for Law Indrani Raja said that among the targets is for Singapore to be an international hub for IP transactions and management so that companies will use Singapore as a base and manage their IP portfolios from here. The committee also recommends that Singapore should aim to be a hub for quality IP filings for companies all over the world and become a choice venue for IP dispute resolution.
One other critical ingredient necessary to be an intellectual property hub is our impartial and efficient legal system. Madam, the area of IP patents, royalties and licensing are important ones and set to grow. The World Bank listed royalties and licensing to be worth about US $200 billion. The number of patents is growing at a furious pace of 45% annually. We should have a slice of that pie.
The committee has recommended that Singapore develop skilled IP professionals networked to the region and beyond to effectively serve the international needs of companies, and also that we build a conducive and progressive environment to encourage IP players worldwide to bring their IP activities to Singapore and thus create a thriving IP ecosystem in Singapore and entrench our status as an IP hub and position us to assert thought leadership in the field. We are in general agreement with the recommendations of the committee, and we intend to aggressively develop Singapore into a regional and international IP hub. Detailed announcements will be made over the next few months on this front.
Moving next to the Ministry of Communications and Information, Dr. Yaacob Ibrahim told Parliament Singapore will be making the transition to digital TV by the end of the year. He said MediaCorp's 7 free-to-air channels will be broadcast in digital format and moved to high definition in 2 phases. He said viewers can then enjoy the higher quality images and surround sound from digital TV through existing pay TV set-top boxes or a separate receiver.
We will ensure sufficient time for households to make the digital transition. MediaCorp will continue to broadcast analog signals for free-to-air channels for at least 2 years from the digital switch on in end 2013. MD will also introduce consumer labels for dealers to affix to compatible digital receivers. And this will allow our consumers to easily identify the equipment suitable for their needs. From April this year, consumers will be able to buy TVs with compatible integrated digital receivers that are affixed with MDA's consumer labels. Consumers can also choose to buy set-up boxes affixed with these labels to connect to the existing TVs as the boxes gradually become available. But we will not forget the needy households who may need assistance with the switchover. MDA is looking at ways to assist them. We expect to finalize and ready these plans by 2014. We recognize the important role that TV broadcast plays, and I would like to assure the House that MDA is working to ensure that all Singaporeans can benefit from our free-to-air digital programming.
Dr. Yaacob said if Infocom can help businesses boost productivity, the Infocom and Development Authority has supported the efforts of more than 5,000 small and medium-sized enterprises to raise productivity through Infocom and technology solutions.
An increasing number of companies have used design to gain an advantage for business competitiveness and growth. The Design Singapore Council provides schemes to incentivize local businesses to invest in design for innovation and productivity gains. Over the past 2 years, over 100 companies have been supported through assistance schemes such as the Design for Business Innovation Grant, or DBIG, and the Productivity and Innovation Grant Credit, PIC, for investments in design.
Infocom can also be used to improve Singaporeans' quality of life. He said 2 proposals to pilot home-based work were awarded earlier this year. These pilots, which will run for 6 months to a year, will be carried out in a variety of industries such as telecommunications, healthcare and education. And this year, the Infocom Development Authority will also call for proposals to establish smart work centres.
Smart work centres are conducive alternative working spaces. They will be equipped with professional facilities and shared by employees of different companies. Employers looking to offer flexible work arrangements can arrange for the employees to work at a smart work centre near home. ID also currently working with the National Library Board to pilot smart work centres at selected libraries. At the same time, the Public Service will be piloting a similar concept at the Treasury Building and the new MND and NOM buildings for use by public officers from participating public agencies.
Elaborating on the ministry's plans to build a knowledgeable nation, Senior Parliamentary Secretary Sim Ann said the government will be developing 2 new libraries in Tampines and Punggol over the next few years. The Tampines Library will be redeveloped as part of the upcoming Tampines Town Hub in 2016. It will be co-located with other community, arts and sports facilities. In addition, a library in Punggol will also be built in 2017 to serve the growing population in the northeast region. Ms. Sim said these 2 libraries will be planned as next-generation libraries with new offerings to meet evolving information needs. Even as new libraries are being built, the government is also working to ensure the disadvantaged groups are taken care of.
I would like to assure members that we will continue to reach out to those groups that have less access to information resources. To serve our orphanages, welfare homes, kindergartens and childcare centres, the National Library Board will be having 2 more mobile libraries. This builds on the success of the current mobile library, or MOLLI, which has served more than 450 organisations and has had a visitorship of more than 300,000 since its launch in 2008.
Another way of fostering a knowledgeable people is through television programs. Minister Yaacob Ibrahim said the government will invest $182 million over the next 4 years to support more locally produced documentaries and current affairs programs. This funding is in addition to the government support of $630 million spread over 5 years for Public Service Broadcast, or PSB, after it accepted the PSB review panel's recommendations last year. Dr. Yaacob recognized that the TV industry is still dependent on advertising revenue. He acknowledged that entertainment programs are popular with viewers, but TV can do more than entertain. It can also provide a strong lineup of quality, informative and educational programs.
We currently have a few good informative programs on TV. So, for example, we have Channel 8's Tuesday Report and the Channel News Asia's Insight. Singaporeans can look forward to more of such programs as we ramp up production in our 4 official languages, English, Malay, Mandarin and Tamil. These programs will cover a wide variety of issues such as our culture and heritage, the environment and public housing.
Mr. Yaacob also said the government is committed to making public engagement a cornerstone of policy making, and it has enhanced its efforts to engage stakeholders in policy making, explaining policies, getting feedback and tweaking policies to better benefit people from all walks of life.
Last year, Madam, we embarked on a national conversation on the kind of home we would like to have in the future. Across governments, many similar conversations have been taking place, and Singaporeans have responded very positively. We have to continue along this vein, listen carefully and consult widely before a decision has to be made at some point. Even as government expands on our public communication efforts, we are aware that there's room to do better. Where issues appear complex, we have to learn how to explain in bite-sized fashion, in appropriate ways for different audiences such as the elderly, especially policies that have great impact on our people.
Elaborating on the government's public consultation efforts, Senior Minister of State for Communications and Information, Lawrence Wong, said there were more than 30 public consultation efforts across the different ministries last year. REACH received an average of 5,500 feedback inputs a month from Singaporeans, a 6-fold increase since it was first launched in 2006. But he said more can still be done to increase citizen involvement in the policy-making process. One key strategy is to enhance REACH, where it will take on a larger role to spearhead engagement efforts across the whole of government. REACH is also making greater use of social media platforms to make it more convenient for Singaporeans to provide feedback. Mr. Wong stressed that the key to effective consultation is mutual respect.
We must also recognize that consultation is also a two-way street. Just as the government needs to be open to different views, so too must the participants of public consultation. Individuals and civic groups are entitled to expect every serious proposal to be considered. But they must also accept that not all suggestions can be accepted by the government, especially when there are different and often competing viewpoints among Singaporeans. Sometimes passions are aroused during these debates, and that's okay, because the issues we are discussing are serious issues that affect the lives of all Singaporeans. But it's important that we do not vilify those who disagree with us or tear down each other in the process of debate. Ultimately, we all want the best for our country and for Singaporeans. And at the end of the day, we must be able to look past all of our differences, all of our disagreements, and still forge a common future. For there are far more things that unite us than divide us.
Finally, under the Ministry of National Development, Minister Koh Boon Wan tackled the issue of housing. Mr. Koh said in the last 2 years, his ministry has dramatically increased the supply of flats. He said families will be able to get keys to 30,000 new units this year. In that regard, Mr. Koh announced that the Parenthood Priority Scheme, or PPS, will be extended to married couples without children sometime next year, and the same group will now benefit from the Parenthood Provisional Housing Scheme, which provides interim rental housing while they wait for their new flats to be completed. The recently announced Parenthood Priority Schemes initially only gave married couples with children under the age of 16 priority when it comes to buying their first home.
Mr. Seah Kian Peng proposed that we should now extend PPS to pregnant mothers. I agree. And we can do so from the May BTO launch. After we have cleared this backlog, we will extend the scheme to cover those already married but without children yet. And I hope to be able to do so next year. Mr. Gerald Giam asked whether when we do this extension, will the quota be shifted, will the quota be amended? Yeah, certainly. Otherwise, you won't be able to clear the backlog of the targeted population. But to me, this is the clear ranking priority, which I think is fair. Those who already married children, I think, try to give them as fast as we can. Those married, not yet children, give it to them, and then they have to deliver the deal, which is the babies next year. And then those who are not yet married, get them to get the flat, get the keys, and quickly get married and have babies.
Adding that Singapore's current housing imbalance is temporary, Mr. Koh said the ramped-up program for public housing has statistically cleared the backlog of married HDB first-timers. He pointed out that his ministry has been able to stabilise built-to-order flat prices by delinking them from the resale market, and that ministry has acted to curb speculative demand in the local property market and will harden cooling measures if necessary.
The immediate phase of firefighting for first-timers is over, but there are still some hot spots to tackle. The temperature has come down a few notches, but it's still uncomfortable, I know. The progress has, however, gained us some breathing space to take a pause and review the priorities for the next 2 years. And in addition, I'm taking the opportunity of this COS to begin the process of a public discussion on our longer-term housing policies.
To meet the housing needs of another group, the singles, those aged 35 and above, earning $5,000 and below, will be able to buy new two-room flats directly from HDB. Mr. Koh said that this group faces more financial difficulties in owning a home, and rising resale prices have made it more difficult for them to buy a flat.
These new flats will be built in non-mature estates in order to keep the prices down. They will come in two sizes, 35 square meter and 45 square meter, and we leave it to them to choose according to their needs and budget. A couple of other important details are still being finalized. For example, how much should we subsidize the flats as compared to married couples? What should the relative priority be between singles and married couples applying for these flats? We will settle these outstanding issues as quickly as we can so that the first batch of eligible singles can apply in the July BTO launch.
The second-timer quota for 2- and 3-room flats in non-mature estates will also be doubled from 15% to 30%. Mr. Koh said this will help second-time buyers who need to downgrade. 5% of this 30% quota will also be set aside for divorcees or the widowed who have children below 16. Mr. Koh said this will significantly increase the chances of those who apply for a 3-room flat and almost guarantee their ability to select a 2-room flat.
We will further help those divorcees who face debarment from subsidized flats by shortening the debarment period from 5 years to 3 years. I think this will help them move on with their lives, especially those with children. We have been actively clearing our stock of balanced flats through the various sale of balanced flats exercise, SBF. Currently, there's only a small outstanding stock of about 5,000 flats at various stages of construction. We will put those nearing completion, and there are about 3,000 such units, to market pretty soon. There are significant benefits in bunching them for sale under SBF. Small batches inevitably attract disproportionately large numbers of applicants, resulting in repeated disappointment and intense frustration.
As for the elderly, more studio apartments will be built for seniors, half of which will be reserved for those who buy near their flat or their children's. Mr. K said the new studio apartment priority scheme enhances the current aging in place priority scheme and the married child priority scheme, which award priority by giving the seniors more ballot chances. The new studio apartment priority scheme will replace these two priority schemes.
Many multi-generational families prefer to live together or close to one another. And that's why last year we introduced a multi-generation priority scheme to allow them to apply in the same BTO project so that they can live close by. More than 60 pairs of families have benefited from it. Not that many. But for the 60 families, they were most happy. Engineer Lee Bee-Hwa suggested that we go further and build some multi-generational flats, presumably, say, with 4 bedrooms, to help such families live in the same flat. I heard her. I heard she advanced very strong arguments on how such families could better support, especially the newlyweds, both financially as well as transmitting important cultural values. I agree with her. I believe there's some demand because some of my residents come to me too for such multi-generational flats. But I really don't know how big the demand is. Anyway, I've asked HDB to consider doing so in some BTO developments to test out their demand.
Wrapping up his speech, Mr. K says the housing policy needs to change with the times and he plans to involve Singaporeans in re-examining key policies. Mr. K said the HDB flat is first and foremost a home, but it is also an asset.
Looking ahead, as we may no longer get the same kind of returns from reselling a HDB flat as in the past, how will its role as an asset be affected? If it is likely to diminish, how should we make the adjustments? How will any such adjustments impact different groups of Singaporeans with different aspirations and needs?
Another question to ask, what kind of housing should the government provide to support future needs?
Many are clamoring for HDB to return to basics and its original mission of helping Singaporeans own a basic home. But what does returning to basics mean? Does returning to basics mean that we return to pre-2003 days of strict owner occupation? How will this affect the many retirees who now rely on income from subletting, or the younger homeowners who use it to help support their lifestyle? Does returning to basics mean that we return to pre-1989 days when we require HDB flat owners to sell off their flats when they buy a private residential property? How will this affect the plans of many Singaporeans who aspire to live in a private condo and use their HDB flat for additional rental income?
And as Singapore ages, public housing will also need to respond accordingly. Mr. K said the government has to be much more proactive and creative in working out options to help their elderly monetize their HDB flats. But even as a relook is necessary, Mr. K said the primary mission of HDB remains the same: to offer an affordable flat for the majority of Singaporeans.
We will do so partly through cooling measures to nudge the property market down, and partly by seeing if an alternative housing option can be designed. One thing is clear: we are committed to restoring and maintaining the affordability of new HDB flats to the vast majority of first-timer Singaporean households. Their Singapore dream of owning their own homes, just like their parents, is safe. We will make sure of that. At the same time, with the aging population and the bulk of seniors' savings tied up in their HDB flats, we will press on with more options for the seniors to unlock their assets.
Parliament will sit again on Monday. Have a good weekend.